All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations unto the Akim out here pushing his gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Kwana Wath from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. And, I just got done watching, this video, which is, as you see right here, it says fresh ass Israelites, right? Boast not. It says boast not of thy clothing. And this is the elder Canucks page. I think he's the elder out there in California. I think San Francisco, or Sacramento, if I'm not mistaken. I know he's up there in the Bay Area, Salakia, but he's ultimately the elder that was with the elder apostle or Remlob, doing those morning walks and whatnot. So this is his page, right? GMS dedication. And go and subscribe and be edified. But nonetheless, he was doing this video, right? And just as you see right here on the screen, man, just ultimately highlighting, right, the degeneracy, right, of of Israel today, right, of those who are in the world, and even those, right, who know that they're Israelites, man, because this guy right here ultimately knows, right, that he is an Israelite, and is ultimately boasting in his flashiness and is ultimately on that worldly tip, man, just like fucking, Alazar, right, the former head of Sakari is, man, right, as you see right here in the top left, right, he's part of a Jacob's lantern, right, it says pull up fresh as hell, something want verse, blah, 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 and you got him in the middle, it says we crip for the Lord these days. So he's, again, right, being, having 1 foot in the world and 1 foot, in the truth, man, ultimately just bugged out, man, right? And then you see him right there, all blue fit, man, with a watch and whatnot, right? And I'm not necessarily going to play the video. I watched, obviously all the video. I just wanted to ultimately pull up and show this, but again, right, the elder Canuck ultimately, highlights again the degeneracy, of Israel. And right after I had seen this video, the elder's video, right, I had ultimately, seen right here on World Star Hip Hop. It says Chicago is not playing. It says city rallies behind a pregnant mother and her kids who were jumped by students as the attackers' own parents turned against them. Right, and I'm gonna play this video, right? But again, this right here ultimately, adds to, the case, if you will, right, about Israel, 2/3 of our people being degenerates, man, But without further ado, and it's fair use, I'm gonna play this video.
And community members, as you mentioned, they want answers. Now, Mayor Brandon Johnson and other elected officials tonight are condemning the attack as well, calling it deeply disturbing. And we need to warn you, it is heartbreaking to watch this video. It happened yesterday, shortly after school dismissal, and we have blurred and frozen the video before things escalate. Chicago police are now investigating after a 33-year-old mother named Korshanda and her 9-year-old son were viciously attacked near 106th and Bensley. Her young daughter was also there. The terrifying incident unfolded just a couple blocks away from Orville Bright Elementary School, where the boy is a student. Korshanda says they were walking home when a group of kids began following them, then started punching and kicking the mother and son.
And again, right there, right, these children out here, man, they out here acting, they wilding out here, man. It's because ultimately, first and foremost, right, they ain't got no home training, as they say, they ain't got no home training, right? They ain't got no, parents ultimately disciplining them, right? Which the scriptures talk about, train up that child in the way that he should go, man, which ultimately is what? According to the scriptures, man, You know, you're supposed to train up your child according to the scriptures, and according to the scriptures, right, you're supposed to ultimately discipline your children, man. And these kids, you know, again, right, they ain't got no home training. They ain't getting no discipline, you know. These kids should be disciplined, man. But see, this is the kind of behavior, right, that is ultimately exalted, right, within Israel, right, amongst the 2/3 of our people, man, here in America, as well as, you know, you got Israelites acting like this outside of America, right, but mainly here in America, man, where this behavior is ultimately condoned, man, right, which is ultimately the behavior of degenerates, man, you know. So I do want to grab that scripture, right? This is Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 21. It says, "Yet I had planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed," right? And that's talking about the nation of Israel, man, right? The Lord ultimately created, right, Israel to, you know, ultimately, you know, be the standard within the world, within the earth. You know, but see, again, right, Jake wanted to continue and go off. Jake wanted to continue to follow the ways of the heathens, you know, which is completely contrary to that noble character, right? When you go into that word noble, right, I have it pulled up right here, right, noble, right? It's on the online etymology. It says illustrious, right, distinguished, of high rank of birth, right, of noble bearing of birth, right, well-known, famous, renowned, excellent, superior, right, a superior conduct, a superior mindset, right? But see, Jake over here, man, you see this shit, man, that's a low rank, a low vibrational fucking attitude, character, you know, and action, man. You know, you're beating, you know, you got kids over here beating a pregnant woman, man. Now, and whether they knew she was pregnant or not, that's not the point. You know what I mean? This is a grown-ass adult, right? You got kids acting like they can just gang up on a grown-ass adult, and then that shit's okay. You know, I'm sure that they had, you know, boys, right, hitting grown-ass women. That right there is in fucking insane, man. You know? And they may or may not get punished, man. You know, I highly doubt it. You know, I highly fucking doubt it, man. You know, and if they do, it's gonna be like a slap on the wrist, man. Because that's, again, that behavior is ultimately, you know, exalted, you know, magnified within this society, man. You know, it says prominent, blah blah blah. Let's go down. It says distinguished by splendor, magnificence, or stateliness, right? It says worthy of honor or respect, man. And that is not worthy of honor. That is not worthy of respect right there, man. Right? The way that they're acting, right? It says having lofty character, having high moral qualities, man. Fuck no, that shit's low as hell. You know, you see how Jake is acting, man. You know, we're supposed to be the standard, right, in the earth, and soon we are gonna be, right? Soon, right, this whole, you know, degeneracy is gonna be undone, you know, and we are gonna be the standard in the earth, right? That's to Zion, right? That monument, the standard, right, within the earth, man, as the scriptures say, you know. But as of right now, man, Jake is done, you know. Let's go back, right? It says Jeremiah 2:21, "Yet had planted thee a noble vine, wholly a right seed," man, right? So we were supposed to be, again, right, having that higher moral character and values, you know. But it says what? "And how then art thou turned into the degenerate plant of a strange vine unto me?" A degenerate plant, right? Let's grab that word, degenerate, right? It says having lost or suffered impairment to the qualities proper to the race or kind, man. You ain't got the proper qualities, right, to be noble, right? You ain't got the proper qualities to be, you know, honored or respected, you know, right? It says to be inferior to one's ancestors. And when we go back to the time of King David and King Solomon, you know, hey, man, that right there, man, was, again, a foreshadow, right? Those two rulerships, right? King David, right, and his son, King Solomon, right, when you ultimately look at both those rulerships, that right there is a foreshadow, right, of what the kingdom is going to be like, man. We're going to put these heathens into subjection, and they're going to fear us, right? And we're going to rule over them, and we're going to be, we're going to be on top, man. And we're going to be at rest. We're going to be at peace. And we're not going to be acting like this, man. Our people are not going to be acting like this. Our people are not going to be degenerates, man. The heathen are going to want to be us, man. It just ultimately pisses you off when you see this, man. Right? It says fall from ancestral quality. Right? It said, yeah, unworthy, right? Unworthy, debased, having fallen in quality or passed to in an inferior state. An inferior state, man. This is the state in which Israel is in right now. Right? Man, you see this shit, man. Matter of fact, let me grab this precept real quick. King David ultimately said this, man. In Psalms, I think it's right here, Psalm 73, verse 17. It says, until I went into the sanctuary of the Most High, then understood I therein. Right? When you look at Jake, right, and you look at the way he's acting, and you understand and you see why the Lord is judging Jake, man. Right? You see why the Lord is finna destroy Jake. Hey, man, these Jake got to be destroyed, and this is why the Lord said in Zechariah 13 and 8. Right? Matter of fact, let's grab it. Zechariah chapter 13 and verse 8. It says what? It says, and it shall come to pass. Right? This is a future prophecy. Right? That in all the land, speaking about here in America, saith Yahweh, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die. They're gonna perish because of their degeneracy, man. Because they are not ultimately, they've fallen away from that nobility, right? And ultimately, ultimately put on the characteristics, right, of a degenerate people, a degenerate nation, an unworthy, an unhonored, and unrespected people, right? Just by their actions, by what they say, by that's 2/3 of our people, and they have to be destroyed, man. Because that attitude, that way of life that we see our people in, that's not going to go into the kingdom. Hell no, man. Fuck no. The Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai is not going to allow it. The Lord's finna get rid of it, right? It says, and it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith Yahweh, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the 3rd shall be left therein, which is speaking about the elect, man. Right, which who ultimately in the spirit, right, of ultimately trying to, acquire, right, because for so long we've been, again, right, we were in that state at one point or another, man, right, where we ultimately, we're bugged out in the world acting like this, but see, Yahweh Bashem El Shai ultimately woke us up, through the spirit, man, and now, we're putting off that old nature, man, that old man, right, which is ultimately, after the world. Right, as we see these little ass, these nigglets, right, and these worldly ass, Israelites, acting, and we're putting that shit off, man, and we trying to put on that noble character, This is why King David said, give unto me thy free spirit. What does it say? Right. Psalms 51 and verse 12, it says, restore unto me the joy of thy salvation and uphold me with thy free spirit. And I remember the brother Tazar, here at camp, man, the brother Tazar had gone into this, man, because that brother, ultimately goes into, that noble character and how we're supposed to be, acting and whatnot, and how we're supposed to see ourselves and so on and so forth, man. And when you go into this word free spirit, it goes back to, that a noble spirit. Let's go ahead and look that up. Right? All right, fact check it, right? This is Psalms 51 and verse 12. It says, restore unto me the joy of thy salvation and uphold me with thy free spirit. When you go into that word free spirit, or free, right? It says, Strong's H5081, Nadab, right? It says what? Noble, princely in rank, right? Noble in mind and character, right? Noble one, right? Right? So having that noble mindset, that noble character, that's a prayer that King David was praying. And this is prayers that we got to be making as well, man. Because, hey, we don't want to be out here acting like these niggas, man, because the Lord finna kill these niggas. And excuse my language, man, but hey, that's exactly what they are, man. Niggas and nigglets, man. That degenerate plant. Degenerate ass people, man, and the Lord finna get rid of them, man. But as King David said, man, when going to the sanctuary, then I understood therein, right? I understand why the Lord finna get rid of them, man. They destroyed mentally, man. They're not gonna be, no, man. They're not finna, put on that noble character. No, man. Lord got to get rid of these niggas, man. ASAP. But again, right, man, we got to ultimately continue to pray that, that Yahweh Shem Shah restore unto us that, that noble mindset, right? That noble character. And we're learning that every single day, man, right? We just got to continue to pray, continue to watch, right? Continue to be in the scriptures as much as possible, But that's all I got, man. I ultimately just wanted to point that out, man. Lord will is edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash, double honor said the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.